Okay, hey Zoe, thanks for joining the podcast today. I'm excited to get into our conversation, but before we dive into what you're working on, which is fintech in the area of private credit and underwriting, why don't you just tell me a bit about your background? What brought you up to this point? How'd you end up in New York City, etc.?
Sure. Hi, my name is Zoe. I'm originally come from China, and I came to the States when I was 15 for high school and college. I studied accounting and finance for undergrad, and then I went to Oxford in UK and studied AI. And my career started on Wall Street. I was a PE analyst, but ever since then, I was always very entrepreneurial. I started my first business ever since college and scaled it across different cities. And now I'm on the second venture, was building the next decacorn in the
That's great.
AI.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, that's a lot of moving across the world, first to Britain and then here. I'm sure it's been a big adjustment, and especially starting a new company. So that's a lot to take on. That's pretty impressive. Um, yeah, I mean, so now why don't we dive into what you're working on? I know when we first met at a rooftop networking event that I was hosting in the New York area here, you had told me that you were working on a startup in uh, the fintech underwriting area as well as private credit, and right now you're working with some potential clients. Why don't you tell me more about how that idea came about and yeah, and what the details are?
Yeah, so when I was working on Wall Street, I see this sector called private credit. It's blooming, and I'm noticing a lot of money are moving into this sector. And plus, I was always very interested in AI, ever like even pre-ChatGPT. I just saw an opportunity there because the underwriting process is still largely manual and opaque. That's why I think AI could largely automate this, and I would argue doing credit assessment better than humans can do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The capabilities of AI are becoming more and more impressive, and of course, there are different types of AI. Are you mostly focusing on the newer LLMs, like the large language models, like the ChatGPT type technology, or more machine learning in that area?
Good question. So our product actually combines both. From the math calculation perspective, it still uses traditional ML because large language models are not built for math reasoning. But we also like build credit memos. We can build credit memos in seconds, and that we use large language models like a ChatGPT. But all of these are fine-tuned because we trained our model based on specifically private credit data. And yeah, so they can analyze all the edge cases for the credit underwriting.
Yeah, that's great that you're able to get that data because that's really it seems a bigger and bigger part of creating value in this day and age is finding good data that's on the forefront of some area or that's deep within some niche that's hard to get. How do you go about getting that data and ensuring that it was good quality data that would therefore allow you to have a good AI?
I getting the data, I think uh is by building relationships with the other firms and get them on the same page, show them how powerful AI can be and what kind of benefits utilizing AI within their organization. Once you get their trust, they'll be willing to share their data, and it just it creates a positive cycle.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Trust, building that trust and the relationships is essential for starting a business. And having a really good, solid demo goes a long way. I know from personal experience that it's very tough to get customers that are willing to try out a product before showing them a really solid demo. But once you do show them that, and it shows a pain point that they worked on, or that they face being solved, then they'll be much more willing to work with you. So yeah, that's definitely big. Um, Yeah, so of course, as I just mentioned, there's a lot of relationship building. There's a lot of relationship building when starting a company. Who are some of the characters or industry players that you've met along the way? You know, either critics or people that have helped you out. 'Cause of course, yeah, there are lots of different variations of people that you meet along the way.
So I'll have to uh bring up my mentor advisor into this conversation. So I actually met him through like a founders group chat, and we've had meetings since clicked. He believed in the vision, and he's a CIO at a bank, Particular Trust Bank, and he believed in me so much, and he just int opened a lot of doors for me and made introductions and mentored me along the way and introduced us to a lot of the clients we have today. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I and having a mentor is really huge because there's all these pitfalls that you can face by going through something the first time. But if someone else has already gone through that same path or a similar path, they can point them out and you can avoid them and those pitfalls and save a lot of time. So that's pretty big. Anyone else that you met, like besides your mentors? I mean, when and you don't have to name names, of course, but I'm sure there's a lot of regulation in the financial industry? Were there people that you had to talk to make sure that you're, abiding by those regulations, or different vendors that you had to loop in to help you with things?
Yeah, I've met so many interesting people and they have been all very helpful along the way. Back to our CIO is a CIO at a bank, so he knows
Yeah.
all about compliances, data security,
Uh,
and every like people I meet along the way, whether they work at a credit fund or whether they're a founder, they have always like have something interesting to contribute and just open doors for me. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's what I've noticed too at and certainly right. Knowing a CIO is definitely a great connection to have. But any of the people that I've met at some of the New York City networking events that we've both been to, it just seems like anyone that you meet, there's always a lot of good information to get from people because they're all people that show up to these events that are open to networking and open and have worked on a lot of interesting projects themselves. So yeah, always helpful. Um, yeah. So what's your ultimate vision for the company? Where do you see it going ultimately, as far as the impact that it will have in the industry and what result it will have for the customers, et cetera?
I'm very ambitious. I think you always need to think big. We want to become the go-to AI infrastructure for private credit. Uh, Currently, we're making the underwriting process more efficient, but long term, that opens up doors to um, uh, for capital access to businesses that have been underserved today because these banks and lenders don't have the capacity. So in the future, I think we can serve more businesses and maybe help growing the VC ecosystem and creating more, funding access for early stage businesses.
Okay, so that's interesting. So is that kind of the problem you're solving at first? Is these early stage companies, there's not enough credit for them, and you're kind of filling that gap there?
Yeah, initially, my idea was building an AI-powered private credit marketplace connecting lenders with borrowers. But after facilitating a few deals, I soon realized, okay, we gotta go back to the roots. What is causing like everyone to move so slow? It is because they don't have enough time to perform due diligence on like a smaller credit deal because it doesn't bring as much revenue for a lender. So they'd rather like go perform due diligence on a 500 million deal versus a $5 million deal. And therefore, I want to focus on the vertical pinpoint to solve that lender problem first. In the future, once we solve that problem, we bring everyone to the marketplace and create a network effect and have more transactions happens on our marketplace. Therefore, we can serve the early stage companies that I originally wanted to help.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's really great. So what would you say makes your like how will you make your company at the forefront within that industry? So you figured out this niche that you want to go after, these early stage startups, and it sounds like you really kind of use the that first principles approach, seeing that everyone always mentions that term these days, first principles. But yeah, what I mean is really looking at what specifically is going on. You said it was the process was too cumbersome for how small of a company that was, and seeing how specifically that can be solved. So that's a great approach. But now that you have that problem and you're going to solve it, how can you ensure that your product will be at the forefront of solving that problem?
So I'm personally in between San Francisco and New York, and when I'm in San Francisco, I get to know the frontier tech. We've worked with an AI research lab in San Francisco, and they're really at the forefront of these. They were working on math, reasoning, before ChatGPT. So I think by combining, the best of both cities, the finance in New York, the tech in San Francisco, I make sure that we always stay up to date with the best tech, have the best talent to work on our product and to bring the most value to our customers.
Yeah, no, that's definitely essential to have someone who's invested in the project that really has strong technical skills and they're that are at the leading edge there. And how did you end up meeting it or connecting with that group in San Francisco?
Again,
Yeah,
come back to relationship building. I met
yeah,
them through my advisor. It's a long story. My advisor was their dad's old boss, and
yeah.
it's just like, it's all about relationships. And if you're in the right circle, you'll eventually meet the right people.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's hard to picture exactly how it'll work ahead of time, but if you just keep on talking to people, meeting people, then when you do have a problem or an opportunity, then you already know the people that you need to to leverage and get ideas from and take advantage of the opportunity. So that's definitely true. Um, yeah, and just sort of a regional question here. How's it been starting a company in NYC? Of course, there's Silicon Valley out there. You we were just talking about San Francisco, but how would you say it might be different over here in New York City?
New York City is definitely an intense city, but you know what they say, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. We love to stay close with our customers. Some of them are just like blocks away. I think that's one of the benefits of being in New York. Yeah, I think there are so many opportunities and such an exciting city, and we're very excited to be building here.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you found that has it been easier? Do you think starting a fintech company? Do you think it'd be easier here versus Silicon Valley because of all the banks here? Has it been easier to have access to those banks and other financial institutions?
Yeah, I personally think so. I know people think San Francisco is great to build any sort of tech company, but specifically for fintech, I think New York is the place that you need to be in. If you're hiring technical talent, sure, go to San Francisco. But on the once your company has grown out of that stage and hits production and hits to the go-to-market stage, then you need to be in New York. I don't know what you're doing if you're not in New York.
I love to hear it. As a well, I'm a New Jersey native, but I went to school in New York, and it is a special place. So I appreciate that. So Uh, yeah, I guess like overall, what would you say makes the either the broader fintech industry or even just the niche that you're in of private credit and underwriting? What makes that industry promising? Is it growing rapidly, or is it are there a lot of antiquated practices? I know you said before that there is some of that. So if you
So
don't mind talking more about that,
yeah, all of them above. Private
yeah,
credit today is a $1.7 trillion market, and in the under 3 years, it's gonna double in size. So definitely a growing
okay.
space. Combining with AI, the opportunity is just infinite, and we want to capture this wave. And there are a lot to be done here, and Plus, financial institutions are really slow adopters to these technology. I think it'll take some time to convince them to adapt, which is good. Give us more time to prepare. And when we come out, we're gonna shock the world.
I love it. I love the enthusiasm there. Yeah, no, there's definitely having worked at these financial institutions or financial software companies myself. Definitely, they're not always on the cutting edge of technology because they do have a lot of regulation. But some people may see that as a challenge. Breaking into you have these big banks. A lot of them are building out their own technology. Did you find that, many challenges, or could you explain some of the like the tough parts that you hit trying to break into the industry, or any whatever it was that you found to be difficult?
Yeah. So B2B has long sales cycles, especially for these banks, a lot of compliances, and some banks re require you to have like a big VC backing. And I've talked to JP Morgan. They've actually dabbled with like 12 startups, all like in the underwriting space, similar space. And they were telling me one problem they're seeing is these startups can't scale is in JP Morgan because JP Morgan is such a big organization and they just don't have enough support. I think that's one of the issues. Number two is compliances. You got to go through SOC 2 and all the internal processes in JP Morgan or any other big bank is just really, really slow. And I think you from like start engaging with them to like finally have the firm implementing your tech, it can take years. And I think that's one of the challenges. That's why we're focusing on the smaller players first because they're fast adopters, and that way we can scale fast first and hopefully eventually serve bigger clients, bigger banks.
Right. Yeah. And so SOC 2 is for anyone that didn't know is like a security standard that you have to have your application up to so that it can be used in this case by the banks. And so JP Morgan or any of these banks they're requiring to have at least SOC 2 in order to do business with them.
Yes, and a VC backing and all the along with
And
other
be
compensation requirements.
okay. So they do have pretty high standards. But of course, if you meet those standards, then I'm sure it's a smaller pool, and so um, a lot of other startups that maybe didn't make it through that, it kind of thins down the competition for you. So that's good. Um, Great. And then, what would you say are some of the like if you were to pass on to someone else starting a company in this area, what are some of the biggest, most valuable things that you've learned firsthand that you could pass on to them?
Mm. I think finding a good business partner is really, really important.
Yeah,
It's a lonely journey to be fighting as a solo founder. Especially you're not
indeed.
good at everything and you have only, limited time. Finding good business partners can really help you go further.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I learned the same lesson, and that lesson was stressed by the Y Combinator lecture series. They said it's definitely important to have a co-founder, and if you're not technical, a technical co-founder. So it definitely makes things a lot easier to have someone who, when you have a production application out there and things really get tough, they can handle the technical part of things. So,
Mhm.
and that's something that even I myself am looking at right now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Oh, I made so many mistakes. I'd love to share all of them with you guys, but
yeah,
have enough time here.
right, yeah, exactly. That's the life of a startup founder. Um, Anything else before we wrap up that you wanted to add?
Mm, just keep pushing. If you're a founder, if you're an entrepreneur, don't ever give up. I think that's the key lesson here. Have that grit. It's a tough journey. You have to believe in yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, no, again, couldn't agree more. A lot of everything in life, but especially as a startup founder, is just persistence. And there are people out there that have gone this path before. So if you just keep on connecting with them, learning from them, then it is a possible path. But yeah, definitely a tough one. So, but you got to be persistent and just keep doing it. All right. Well, thanks, Zoe. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me. I enjoy learning more about fintech and what the landscape is, trying to break in with the big banks and other institutions in New York. And I wish you the best of luck. I'll have to check in a year from now and see how your company is doing.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Brandon.